Hello, my name is Brother Sean, and I'm the abbot of the Teo community of Interfaith Franciscans. Forgive the attire, I've just this minute come in having been out with the dog for a walk. And as I was walking along a redundant railway track, I call it my monastic cloister, it was just me and our little dog Poppy. And I was reflecting on the programme on BBC last night about the nurses who came over from Jamaica in the late 60s, early 70s. And it brought me back to when I was a young student nurse and a monk at the same time, when I started my nurse training in North Manchester in 1971. And I was really horrified to hear of how they were victimized because of the color of their skin. I personally didn't witness it, and we did have quite a few Jamaican nurses with us, but I think it was more in the rural areas of the UK. But what was so beautiful was to see the nurses in their old uniform with the cuffs and the collar and the different buckles and the different colours of belt, signifying their status, be they first year, second year or third year student. And all the feedback from each of those amazing nurses was the pride they took in their work, the heart that they shared of themselves with their patients, even though some were ridiculed for being black. And as I was walking along the monastic cloister this morning, I reflected on why is it today that so many people have either lost the heart and the will in what they do, or are becoming oppressed by litigation, the fear of litigation, not being good enough, not doing enough. And I reflected on the time when I was a young nurse. I mean, I gave my life to nursing for 38 years, a long time. And I loved it. I really can truthfully say, hand on heart, I loved my career as a nurse and a nursing monk, because there was that feel-good factor in what we did. You were appreciated and respected. But today, a lot of the emails I receive here in our little monastery are from professional people who are so deeply unhappy in their professional life. Teachers, bogged down with academia, reports, and meeting various targets. Nurses who have lost the joy of nursing, because many of our nurses now are doing the work of the junior house doctors, or officers as we call them, and it left the nurse to care, to give good care. And in the 70s, 80s, you very rarely heard of a litigation against a nurse for malpractice. But today, we're swamped with cases of litigation, of neglect from nurses, from doctors, from GPs. And I asked myself, why is that? They're swamped. Roles have changed. But not only in nursing, solicitors, accountants, bank staff, those who work in the insurance industry, especially the litigation industry. Many people today are living a life that is devoid of heart. But what about the church? I can honestly say today, religion and worship have become alienated, poles apart. We're having supported a lot of young priests and parish priests as a pastoral counsellor. Many were saying their bishop is only interested in how much we take in the plate every week, not interested that I'm unwell, I'm suffering, and I need some help. Sadly, today in the UK, each of the dioceses is struggling because they don't have sufficient priests. Maybe it's time to delegate. Maybe it's time, wait for it, to ordain women as priests, because they were ordained by St. Paul before the Council of Nicaea. And a lot of people forget that. We did have women priests in the early Christian church. We even had women who were ordained bishops by St. Paul. But of course, from the Council of Nicaea, St. Augustine did away with that and ordered women back to where they should be, having children. How do we put the heart back into our life today, into our professional life, into our prayer life, into our worship of God? Can we put it back? Can we mend a broken heart that's become disillusioned with one's life, with one's professional life, one's relationship with others, one's relationship with God? I'm so glad that I'm a member of a community that has very, very little red tape. As members of the Teo community of Interfaith Franciscans, we live a very, very simple life to a very simple rule of life. And love is the underpinning value of what we do. Yes, I'm the abbot, but more of a spiritual father, brother, where we reach out to one another. We're all equal. We're all equal in our community. I'm in service to God as a servant of the servants. In other words, my brothers and sisters are equal to me, and I learn from them. But religion today seems to have lost, not just in the Christian church, but in the Buddhist church, because one of our community living here is Brother Paul, who is a devout Buddhist of the Dalai Lama community. And Brother Paul was saying to us the same is happening in the Buddhist monasteries. They're becoming very power-orientated, driven by materialism and money. I've seen it in the Catholic monasteries. I know we have to survive, but why compromise the simplicity? Why compromise one's love of God? Why not put the heart back in and take time out to be still? And we're coming up now to the Advent period in the Christian church of 4 weeks of preparation for the spiritual rebirthing of Jesus, the infant King. It's a spiritual rebirthing, and it's a time of preparation. Maybe the theme for your Advent could be, am I living an unfulfilled life? Is my life devoid of love? Do I sense hopelessness at my place of work, at my place of worship with God? And if so, take responsibility for it and come away and rest a while, excuse me, with the Master. Or whatever your belief is, if you're a Buddhist, the Lord Buddha, Hindu or Sikh, Vishnu, Ganesh and Krishna. If you're a Muslim, the Prophet Muhammad. And if you're a brother or sister Jew, then come back to Jehovah and the ancient prophets, Moses, Abraham. I know I went through a pretty dark period a number of years ago when I was a young student nurse and a monk at the same time. The two worlds were fighting one another, and one had to be really disciplined. But what made it so difficult, we lost 200 young monks in the space of 3 years. Because when we returned from the hospital environment where we were training, either as a general trained nurse or a psychiatric nurse, we'd come home to a community where even the refectory was locked and there was no food. Little things like that, where brothers were resentful that you were given an opportunity to train as a nurse, whereas many of the older members never had that opportunity. So there were currents of resentment even in the monastery. But today people are more articulate. A lot of people are choosing not to go back to conventional religion, like in Ireland. Many are becoming more interfaith, pro-faith, spiritual, without all the trappings. And it's sad, because I love my Catholic Church. I love the symbolism, and I love and have a great love of Mother Mary. More so since my birth mother died 5 years ago. My church has given me so much richness, and I'm certainly not anti-Catholic, but I've incurred the wrath of my church for daring to follow the advice of Francis and Jesus at the tomb of Assisi, where I was guided to come away from my comfort zone and to walk a simpler faith, and not only to embrace all faiths, but to establish this community for them where we would invite brothers and sisters of different beliefs and live a monastic life, initially from our monastery without walls, our home, until such time as the Friend Clara Abbey materializes from the ethers, where 12 of us will live together in community, each living a very simple hermitic life, where we would come together 3 times a day to celebrate our spiritual diversity and richness by dancing the canticle of the creatures of Francis, to be a community of peace, to dedicate our lives for global interspiritual unity and global peace. But what does Jesus say? He's the one I've vowed my life to now. Well, I entered the monastery at 16, so I celebrated my half century the day I entered on the 6th of June this year. I'm going to read to you from this beautiful little book of messages from Jesus by Sarah Young, and it's called Jesus Calling, and I've opened it at random to allow the Spirit of God speak through my heart, where I have no agenda to control you or convert you. Remember that joy is not dependent on your circumstances. Some of the world's most miserable people are those whose circumstances seem the most enviable. People who reach the top of the ladder career-wise are often surprised to find emptiness awaiting them. True joy is a byproduct of living in my presence, said Jesus. Therefore, you can experience it in palaces, in prisons, anywhere. Do not judge a day as devoid of joy just because it contains difficulties. Instead, concentrate on keeping in communication with me. Many of the problems that clamor for our attention will resolve themselves. Other matters you must deal with, but I will help you through them. If you make problem solving secondary to the goal of living close to me, you can find joy even in your most difficult days. And then Jesus said, be willing to follow wherever I lead. Follow me wholeheartedly, with glad anticipation quickening your step. Though you don't know what lies ahead, I know, and that is enough. Some of my richest blessings are just around the bend, out of sight, but nonetheless very real. To receive these gifts, you must have faith. Faith not by sight. This doesn't mean closing your eyes to what is all around you. It means subordinating the visible world to the invisible shepherd of your soul. Sometimes I lead you up a high mountain with only my hand to support you. The higher you climb, the more spectacular the view becomes, and also the more keenly you sense your separation from the world with all its many problems. This frees you to experience exuberantly the joyous reality of my presence. Give yourself fully to these glory moments, awash in dazzling light, and I will eventually lead you down the mountain, back into the community with others. Let my light continue to shine within you as you walk again among my people. Now, I didn't choose those readings, they were chosen for us. And the theme is about putting hope back where one feels helpless and hopeless. But can we mend a broken heart? Yes, we can. I can't mend my broken heart. I don't have a broken heart. I did. But the love of Christ, the moment we surrender who we are, where we're at in our journey, and hand it over to Christ, He takes us to that mountaintop and He showers us with love. But today, many people are reluctant to surrender their heart. They see it as failure, ego. But if you are how I was several years ago, where I went through a pretty horrendous dark night of the soul, it's over 20 years now, but it's like yesterday, where I lost my dear friend, a brother monk, and we were like two seeds in a pod. He made me laugh in the difficult times. And though he was only 42 when he died of cancer, and I'd never ever seen him naked, ever, till I washed his body for burial. And I wept tears at losing my best pal. Now, religious life forbade particular friendships, but it wasn't a particular friendship. He was an anam cara, a soulmate. He was my wings when I was low and struggling, as I was his wings when he was struggling. And being introduced to Prozac to help me deal with death and dying issues, you would have thought as a senior nurse in palliative care, I would have been able to pull myself together, as some would say, but I'm not a pair of curtains. I'm a human being, and I struggled very much. But Prozac sadly introduced me to mental illness, to bipolar, which I live with every day, but thankfully through meditation and prayer, and each morning saying to Jesus, Lord, show me today how I may be of service to you. And to trust. The one beautiful thing about being a member of the Teo community of Interfaith Franciscans, we take 7 vows or promises of peace, all connected to peace, but one of them is the vow of providence, where we trust in Almighty God for everything we need, not our wants, our needs. Our community is prohibited from borrowing money or for appealing for funds. Like Mother Teresa of Calcutta, now Saint Teresa of Calcutta, they too took the vow of providence, where they trusted in Father, Mother, God to provide for their needs. And knowing that that relationship of trust is there through the vow of providence, where God, who sees our needs, will meet them as and when we need them. So what I'm saying is, if there is unhappiness in your life where you feel unfulfilled, take a deep breath and ask Spirit to speak to your heart and show you in what areas of your life are you unhappy. It could be that you're in a loveless relationship that's all about take, where there's no giving back to you. Then you have to take responsibility for that and speak your truth from love, not in anger. If you're working in an environment where you're devalued and not appreciated, as I was as a student nurse and as a senior nurse, where your bosses were forever on your back, and where you began to really resent them, I would always have a point of saying to them, may I have a word? And then I would talk to them from love. And I never had any fear, because the fear base is an illusion, because it has no face. And I would share with them that I have a problem when they speak like that, when they behave in such a way. So the secret is to always honor your truth, honor your heart. Your heart is your teacher. And your heart is the gateway to your spirit, to your soul. And your soul is the gateway to God, to nirvana, to joy. So a simple prayer I leave with you. Father, Mother God, through the cosmic Christ and through all the great spiritual teachers of the world's major religions, we come to you today. We come in our brokenness, in our woundedness, in our vulnerability, and we ask your help to empower our heart, discern which are the triggers that leave me feeling so helpless and hopeless. And we ask your healing touch right now on all those areas, so that we don't become the victim, but that we retain the person you created, a beautiful child of God, who in your image and likeness was created whole, perfect, and complete. Amen. I pray that this short video has helped you in some way. And if you ever want to make contact with me, you can go to my website, CelticFranciscanMonk.com, all lowercase. And if you need support, I will walk with you in faith. So Namaste, Shalom, Inshallah, Paxet Bonum, OmShanti, Solo di Caritas, Salam Alaikum, and may the peace of all that is sacred to you reawaken your heart to the I Am presence of God, who already lives within you. And let today be the first day of the rest of your life, where you have taken back your peace, your joy, and can reflect those wonderful gifts, not just to yourself, but to those closest to you. Till we meet again, God bless.